Welcome to the Latino Podcast, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities with legal, political, and community leaders and visionaries. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, it's John Gomez. Welcome to this episode of the Latino, where we discuss the intersection of law and our Latino communities. We're pleased to present the perspectives and voices of leading Latino lawyers, judges, lawmakers, and community influencers. Today, as part of my hosting team, I'm joined by senior trial attorney Laura Dietz, who is a trial lawyer with us at Gomez Trial Attorneys, also a board member of La Raza Lawyers organization, very involved in Latina leadership in our community. Super pleased to have her with us. We also have Vanessa Felix Corona, who is an aspiring lawyer here, works as a law clerk with us now, is going to be taking the California bar shortly. Also very involved in the La Raza lawyers and students community, most notably really coordinated and came together for a tri-school mixer here at the law firm. Also, I will promote your own podcast that I saw. What's the name of your podcast?
It's called Making It Make Sense by Latinas Exec.
Okay, Making It Make Sense by Latinas Exec.
Yes.
You tell us what that's about.
Okay. So Latinas Exec is a program that me and another law student from one of the local law schools created, and it's essentially a platform. We have a website where we want high schoolers or undergrad students are interested in becoming lawyers or going into law school. We help them with admissions, resumes, personal statements, and we also help them answering any questions and just helping them network and get into law school and live the dream.
Super cool.
Yeah, thank you.
And so today, I think we're joined by a guest that really makes us feel proud, very grateful that he came all the way down here. He actually, his wonderful wife, Blanca, actually traveled with him today from their home in Los Angeles. Today, we welcome retired chief judge, formerly district judge, formerly amazing trial lawyer, Philip Gutierrez, originally from East Los Angeles, then found his way out to South Bend, Indiana, and I know Jessica Lujan is ruining the fact that she's not with us today. Jessica, her daughter is matriculating from grade school to middle school today, and the daughter is a dynamo, so she's there today, but she's very sad she can't be with us because she's a proud domer. And then Judge Gutierrez went on to UCLA Law School, a very esteemed career as a trial lawyer himself, then served our nation as a district court judge appointed by George W. Bush, and then on to George W. Bush, yes, and then on to serve as the chief of the Central District, obviously, one of the most important federal courts in the country. And so we're just so honored to have you here with us today, Judge. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
And it's so cool, full circle, Vanessa's talking about, developing, young future Latina lawyers. And I know, Judge, that you're very interested in mentoring and developing and helping young people find their way. The funny thing is we met each other, me and the judge, at a conference at UCSD, which is a local university. They were putting on a forum for, mainly aspiring law students. I spoke, Judge spoke, and we connected. And I put up, because I'm like a salesperson. I'm like, you gotta listen to my podcast. He saw the podcast. Said, I want to be on the podcast. I was like, you want to be on my podcast? So thank you so much for being here, Judge.
It's absolutely right. I heard your story. We were talking to college students who were aspiring to be lawyers going to law school. So the program was basically to give encouragement and hope and guidance to 200 college students. So I gave my story, and Mr. Gomez gave his story, and I think we connected. We were both so impressed with each other. Just looking forward to talking to you today.
Yeah, likewise, Judge. So let's roll it back all the way to the beginning. You told me you grew up in East Los Angeles. And so like a lot of our listeners, come from areas like that. And it's always great to see people that have come out of those communities and done great things. What was childhood like for you?
Well, I grew up in East LA. As you said, it was predominantly probably 95% Latino population at the time. I was the youngest of 4 kids. My mother was single. My dad, unfortunately, had problems with alcohol and drugs. So I think because of that, I was kind of, I guess the right word is a hellion. I was acting out, not behaving too well. And my mother had the good fortune to send me to a parochial school, but the nuns always wanted to throw me out every year because of the trouble I was raising. So finally, we talk about mentorship. I think finally when I was in 7th grade, one of the Benedictine brothers there saw something in me and took me aside and actually taught me how to play tennis and would take me around the tennis tournaments and exposed me to a whole different population of things and different things that you could do that I had never been exposed to. So he was sort of my first mentor who had faith in me. But my mom went to a teacher conference with him, and it was the first time she heard good things about me, and she was just flabbergasted and amazed. So anyway, he was the first person who really inspired me to do different things.
That's so cool. And so, do you still play tennis?
I watch tennis. I watched the French Open this week. I said every tennis player, I have problems with my shoulder. So
yeah.
I can hit ground strokes still pretty good, but I don't play as often as enough. Yeah, it was a lifetime gift.
But like your single mom, doing her thing, and unfortunately, sorry about your dad, but I suspect your mom was probably a pretty strong lady.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that earlier before the cast, and my mother worked at the East Los Angeles Municipal Court. She was a courtroom clerk.
Oh, okay.
So since the age of 6, we talked about mentoring high school students. It's all about exposure, right? And so my mother had the vision that she would take me to court, and I would meet whatever judge she was working for. One of them happened. The first judge she worked for was Judge Takasuki, who ended up being a federal judge and ultimately another mentor to me. And then I would, play around in the courtroom with the district attorney and the public defender and the interpreters and the clerk's office. So she, at a very early age, had this vision that somehow the law was going to be part of my life.
She was right.
She was, yeah. So we were talking again earlier, and he says, when did you realize you wanted to become a judge? And I tell people the same thing all the time. It was my mother's idea for me to become a judge. And being the great mother that she was, she got me to believe later in life that it was my idea.
Oh, yeah.
But I think she knew all along what she was doing when she took me to court, most days.
That's so cool. And so, as your, mom takes you in, you're watching maybe a trial or whatever. Do you remember in those days thinking that one day that would be you? Or were you just kind of taking it all in?
I was just taking it all in. I was having fun. It was just, just watching the courtroom drama. Then afterwards being introduced to words that, are familiar to all us now. But I remember one particularly bigger hearing, and everybody was using the word stipulation. And I go up to the district attorney, what is a stipulation? So even at that early age, learning the lingo of the courtroom, but also I think more than anything, also it was home, right? I was perfectly comfortable there, but I didn't have it in my mind that I was just having fun.
Yes.
And never had in mind that someday I was going to be at the counsel table or on the bench or anywhere else.
Where was she a clerk? What court?
East Los Angeles Municipal Court before unification.
Okay. And I don't know if you remember if it made an impact on you, but at that time, were there any Latino prosecutors or defense lawyers or?
There were few, a couple of public defenders and DAs that were Latino and ultimately became judges.
Yeah.
But there weren't very many, not like today. But no, there weren't very many.
How about judges?
One of the judges she worked for was Judge Vega. So
Okay.
there was that was a small court. You remember the municipal court days? There was 5 judges. I would always say that probably 1 or 2 were Latinos who had previously been DAs or city attorneys in Los Angeles who ultimately became judges. And that also, too, was inspiring to me to see. I don't think we asked the question now. I didn't think I realized the significance of seeing someone who looked like you on the bench.
Right.
But I guess on the other hand, too, it just made it totally natural that it was, a possibility.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's a little bit, you can call it fortuitous or you can call it God's plan that he had your mom working in the courts. You know, like it was all set to happen.
I think, my mother, I'm sure, like I said, she knew what she was doing. She knew exactly.
This all goes back to mom. Yeah. It's so cool that you had a person from the church, a male leader, influential in your development and exposure. Because as I was telling you before we started, one of our lawyers here, Jessica Lujan, her dad, painted the murals here in our podcast room, and one of the prominent figures is this priest, Tú eres mi otro yo, and Jessica really gives him a lot of credit for her development and being a mentor to her. And, we hear like a lot of criticism of the Catholic Church these days. And, I was raised Catholic. My kid goes to a Catholic school. And I personally am a big fan of the Catholic Church. I feel like they do a lot of great work for a lot of great people and obviously for you.
I was very fortunate that I'll give him a shout out because he probably will listen to the podcast. He's now in his 80s, but he was brother Hillary McGuire. He lives in San Diego now.
Oh, really?
And he's not a brother anymore, but he's now married and has kids. But
wow.
He was the first person that was instrumental. And as you mentioned, after that I went to Cantwell High School in Montebello, and there was another mentor. He wasn't a cleric, but James Moran, who was my English teacher for 3 years. And an algebra teacher for half a year, and he wasn't very good at algebra. He was an English major, and so if you watched the Notre Dame football game that weekend, you could at least get one word problem correct.
Oh.
So if Notre Dame scored X, what did Purdue score?
Yeah.
And so he basically taught Notre Dame for 3 years. And
oh, really?
So that was the influence that got me to go from East LA to Cantwell High School to Notre Dame. He pretty much convinced a group of us. It was, again, probably 90% Latino at the time. And he convinced probably about 10 kids that you're going to go out of state for school. And so he persuaded peers that went to Yale, Columbia, Notre Dame, Penn, Cornell. So he was just another instrumental, super person.
Is he still around, do you know?
He's still around. He lives in San Gabriel.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That'd be cool both if now Mr. McGuire and Mr. Moran were able to listen and like reflect upon the effect they had on you and your life, and as a result, all the people whose lives you've touched.
Yeah, I never would have imagined, and it would talk some more about it. As a kid in East LA, first of all, learning how to play tennis and competing at the high school level in tournament tennis, and then going to Cantwell High School as a freshman. Never would have imagined myself ever in South Bend, Indiana. It wasn't even on the radar at all. And
Did you like it?
Like anybody else, my first semester I was so cold. It was the worst winter in Notre Dame history. It was the first time that Notre Dame ever shut down for 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a culture shock. There weren't very many Latinos at Notre Dame at the time. The only other Latinos that I remember are Gilberto Salinas, who was 7 foot tall from Texas, and he was on the basketball team.
Oh,
And Chuck.
not a lot of 7 foot. I was waiting for the kicker. I thought you meant the kicker.
No. And there was Chuck Aragon from New Mexico who ran the first sub-minute 4-minute mile track. And then there was, I don't even remember his name, but he was an obnoxious guy from Texas that we called the Mouth from the South. And then it was just me who didn't have any athletic ability, at least I did.
Tennis player.
Well, not good enough to play college.
No, not there, yeah.
But those were the only folks that I knew of, except the only other Latinos there were the groundskeepers.
Yeah, sure.
And that was it.
You know, let me ask you about that, because I watched this movie, I forget what it's called, it's, maybe you guys saw it, maybe. It's about, I think they're in Texas, and there's this Mexican dude, he's a teacher, and he likes to golf. And then there's like some Mexican kids that work at the club as bag boy, caddies.
Caddies.
And then they would play golf like in the field, but then he develops them into a team. Do you see it?
I saw it a few months ago, actually. I don't remember the name of it, though.
I can't remember.
He was not allowed into the country club.
Right.
And even though he was a great golfer himself.
And they barely, he almost had to show up by surprise with his golf team to compete with all the Mexican kids. But the reason I bring it up, okay, so here's the thing that almost made me cry, is they get to the championship. Mm-hmm. And they won the championship, but they cheated to take it away. And so there's a period of time where he brings the team into the clubhouse. They just kind of walk through, and all the Mexican men are waiting tables or cleaning the tables. And you can see them look at these guys with such pride in their eyes.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, they probably looked at you and felt that way.
Well, it was, it's a special place, and I think everybody there, I mean, despite the lack of Latinos at the university, I think I was always treated there with such dignity and respect. And whether it was the people in the cafeteria or the people that were in the dorms cleaning up after the messy men, it was just a very positive place. Everybody was, I thought, treated with a lot of dignity and respect. It was, I think, something ingrained.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I would love for my boy to find his way there. I don't know if it'll happen, but that's a dream of mine that he would, and he's now come around to that way of thinking. He's a Fighting Irish fan.
You asked me if I was happy my first year. I was so miserable at the time, homesick. But I have to say this: my college roommate we ended up being roommates for 3 years. We visit him every year in Chicago, so we're still friends after all these years. But I was so miserable. I got early to my Spanish class, and I don't remember her name. She walks in, and I said, "Oh, what are you up to?" And she says, "Oh, I just went to the study abroad office." And I said, where are you going to go? He says, Mexico City. And I said, I thought it was too late to study abroad. He goes, no, today's the last day. So after that Spanish class, I go to the study abroad office and I decide I'm going to apply to go somewhere. So there was 3 options for me. One was Japan, because that program was in English. The other place was Mexico City. And the third place was Ireland. And I said to myself, well, if I'm really homesick, I'm going to be really homesick in Japan.
Yeah.
And I said, I live in California, so someday I'm going to get to Mexico City.
Sure. So
out of the blue, I just decided I was going to go to Ireland. And I got accepted to the Ireland program and spent my sophomore year in Ireland. And again, never would have dreamed.
The whole year?
The whole year.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And we went it was St. Patrick's College, Maynooth, which is the national seminary. So all my male friends were clerics, or studying to be priests. And my friends from Notre Dame and St. Mary's College across the street who were in the program, we went to school with the Irish kids. They were all Irish. I was the only Latino. And I had a great year there. But the funny thing was about it, the interesting experience was, they would ask me, what are you? And he said, I would say, well, I'm a Mexican.
Yeah.
Well, you're not a Mexican, you're an American, but you're kind of different.
Yeah.
But it was, again, another great year, a very beautiful place, beautiful people, and then that developed my interest in literature.
Oh, really?
And then I went back for my last 2 years and majored in English.
So like Wordsworth and stuff, like the English classics, or?
Yeah, well, a lot of Irish writers. And
who's that really famous Irish writer?
Yeats.
Yeah, that's right.
So he wrote a book called, I'm going to get this wrong, but Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man that I liked. And I ended up writing a short story that hopefully no one ever sees. A portrait of a young domer as a young man.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, it was again different places that I never thought I would be.
Super neat. Like first you got out of East Los just playing some tennis, and then you end up in Indiana, and then you end up in now Ireland. So you're making your mark at a pretty young age.
We were pretty. I think I was young at the time. It was. I think when I was in Ireland, I was 18 and 19 years old.
Have you ever read Angela's Ashes?
Yes, I read it because our kids had to read it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was part of the curriculum in high school. That's got to be the most depressing book.
Oh, man.
It just is a bad thing after another keeps happening to the family.
Where, it's a. You guys never read it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a book about basically this kid grows up poor in Ireland, and I think single mom, right? And then like she's kind of trading herself. It's just. But I could relate a lot to it. Like
it's the story of the Irish in the sense that horrible things happen and keep happening, but despite that, the spirit.
They keep their chin up, right?
They keep the chin up, the spirit, and there was a lot of similarity, I thought, between the Mexican culture and the Irish culture, and whether it's family, church, music,
struggles,
literature, and it was just always finding the positive things out of the most negative things possible, and just persevering.
Amen. That's beautiful. So, like, when you're in Ireland at that point, are you already looking toward law school?
No, I was just trying to. One of the advice I got from Jim Moran was to do things that I liked. So that's when I started to realize how much I enjoyed reading, writing, and speaking about what I had read. So I was just fortunate enough to find something like literature that I just enjoyed and was having fun. So basically, while other people were studying or working, I was actually having fun reading books. It was really wasn't work anymore. I mean, it took a lot of time. It was a lot of effort, but I was really doing something I enjoyed, and then enjoyed writing about it, and then I enjoyed going to class and talking about it, what we read.
And so we'll go from Ireland and Notre Dame. Now we're going to go to law school. So I thought, Vanessa, maybe you could talk about the law school chapter. You could talk about the lawyer chapter, because people are getting tired of hearing from me.
Yeah.
So take it away, Vanessa.
Okay, perfect. So when you started law school, how did you start? Did you just start your applications? Did you start writing your statements first? How did you pick the law school you wanted to go to?
It was not. I would not recommend the course that I took to go to law school. It was very unscripted, unplanned, not in any way disciplined. As I majored in English, I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I think they were disappointed that I was an English major, because what are you going to do with English as a major? And unfortunately, they were probably right. So my senior year, I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do with this English major, and fortunately, I had a couple of people living around me in the dorms who were applying to law school, and they sold me on the idea. We just started talking, and they were applying, so I just went along for the ride and started studying with them. I didn't have classes at the time. We just all had the same books, and we'd kind of go to different places and study together, and took the LSAT, and then followed their lead in applying. I knew that because of the weather, I wanted to come back to California. So I only applied to California schools. Wasn't even quite sure I was just gonna see what happened. And I got into UCLA. So I said, they may not make the same mistake twice. So I said, I came back home to Los Angeles and decided to go to law school. And I think because it was unscripted, again, I was the first person in my family to go to law school, I didn't quite realize how serious law school was, how rigorous it was going to be. So when I showed up the first week, I was just overwhelmed. And how serious people took it. I was, went to the next football game.
Yeah.
That's what I was used to. And so all of a sudden, there were people that really wanted to do this, really were excited about it. And I was just trying to find my way. Did okay my first year, but really didn't know if I belonged in the place or not, or what future I had in the law. Just didn't feel comfortable. And then out of the blue, I get sent another mentor. I decide to extern in the Central District of California in federal court for Judge David Williams, who happened to be one of the first African-American federal judges in the country. And he just gave me a lot of responsibility. And then he was the one who just kind of made me realize I would go into court and watch court again, but this time as a sort of an insecure law student. And then I would see lawyers argue, and I thought, I can do that.
Okay.
And then I would see writings that they had submitted, and then I said, I certainly can do that. And then just Judge Williams, just, always encouraging, always, very positive about the work I was doing. And then that was sort of the turning point for me in my second year of law school, that I belonged, that I actually did belong, and I could be successful at doing this.
That must have been a nice feeling.
It was, it was like the light bulb went on, the light switch. It was just that dramatic, because that was my second semester of law school, and you're still, what am I going to do? I'm just surviving, or not really enjoying myself, and then he just turns the light switch on.
Would you say that your extension kind of helped you overcome that feeling of being overwhelmed and feeling like you didn't belong, almost like imposter syndrome?
Exactly. I think that's exactly right. Imposter syndrome. I'm over my head. I don't, even though I was exposed by then, I'm now an adult, and, there's not other lawyers you necessarily can talk to. I did have Judge Takasugi to talk to, but you still, that doesn't necessarily cure your self-doubts. That getting rid of self-doubt comes from inside. You have positive influences, but you don't stop doubting until you really believe in yourself, and that was the switch that he helped me make to believe.
Did you ever extern at a law firm? Because I know you said your first year you started at the courts, and I know you said you grew up going into the courts, so like going into law school, did you know you wanted to be an extern at a court?
I knew I wanted to be an extern. I just wanted that experience. At about the same time, a different lawyer, Dominic Rubalcava, who was him and his wife set up a scholarship for UCLA student. And I was the second recipient of his thing.
Wow.
So he paid for my law school, my last 2 years.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
also too, he was, as here Dominic says it, when he was leaving law school, there was this room, everybody was in the room, and he was trying to figure out how to get into the room. There's important things happening in that room, and he had to figure out how to get in the room. And Dominic was the person who figured out how to get in the room. So Dominic became a very close friend of Mayor Tom Bradley, was a supporter of his, and was on the DWP commission, the fire. So all of a sudden, after law school, he's introducing me to different folks who sort of lead on the judicial path, because part of the judicial path is knowing people who are going to recommend you to the bench. So again, and how did I meet Dominic? My mother.
Oh.
Dominic was visiting one of the judges at the courthouse, and my mother got word that he gave a scholarship to a Latino UCLA law student. So before I know it, I've got Dominic's number, and I call him up, and I meet him and his wife, and then the scholarship comes. So it was, again, my mother, the master manipulator.
Did you, I just was curious, like when you came back to UCLA, did you ever live at home with your mom or?
I did. I was, in my last year of law school, I lived at home. I just wanted, I was getting too caught up in the study groups and the pressure, and I just wanted to come home and kind of be normal again. So I would study at the library, drive home from UCLA late at night, and then just kind of have a normal 10 months of people just treating me like Philip.
Amen.
Were you involved at all in any student organizations at your school or community organizations during law school?
I was involved in La Raza.
Okay.
I worked a lot. You asked me if I worked through law. After my first year of law school, I worked at a small firm. So I was working about 20 hours a week, and then full-time in the summer. It was a small PI firm. And that was Anthony de los Reyes, and he just, again, gave me a lot of responsibility. I'm sure the kind of responsibility you're getting here, but that also was a confidence builder, the trust that he gave me. And so before I went to a medium-sized firm, I was a lawyer with him for 2 years, and within a few weeks, I was taking depositions and doing arbitrations, and within 2 years doing my first trial.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's your cue, Laura.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to hear about this. So obviously, it sounds like you started off, your career as an attorney on the plaintiff's side. So I kind of walk me through what that was like in your first trial. Obviously, that has such a meaningful impact.
My first trial was on the defense side. There was one thing that I admire about the entrepreneurship of a plaintiff's firm. I literally, when I did my first binding arbitration for a plaintiff, was worried sick. I just felt if I let him down, it was a big deal. It wasn't just about money. It was about making sure I didn't let him down. We got a fair award in the arbitration, but it worried me sick. My first trial was on the defense side. So by that time, Tony had gone to a firm that did some products liability work, aviation. So I got onto a team that did helicopter crash cases. So it was all, again, dumb luck. So I was working on the case, and I was supposed to meet the head lawyer in Mesa, Arizona. That's where the company had moved, to help prepare expert depositions. And it turns out that the partner got Legionnaire's disease in Philadelphia, and there I was by myself in Mesa, Arizona, and nobody else could come out to help me because it was just a disaster. So for the first part of the week, I was preparing our experts and our pilot expert. And at the end of the week, I defended 3 expert depositions. This is my second year of law school, after law school.
Wow.
So it was just dumb luck. And then the case gets tried in Fresno. And so I'm the low-level associate, so I'm not going to be at the trial necessarily. But there was a bunch of pretrial motions that I had written. And the partner was joking around and says, I don't understand. So I go up to Fresno to argue one day of motions in limine. I don't have a change of clothes. The motions go for 4 days.
Oh.
There's no hotel rooms. I'm sleeping on the floor of the partner's room. The other lawyers were all bigger than me. Other defense lawyers are giving me their shirts, their white shirts. And I just remember Friday flying back from Fresno, probably the most stinky person on the plane after 4 days. So then that involved me it was a 2-month products liability trial. So that was my first trial with somebody else, and then led to other adventures.
That's amazing, especially because you just shared, like in law school, you had that aha moment where you felt like you belonged. And I'm assuming, as a new attorney, you're insecure. We've all been there. You're wanting to prove yourself. And so that probably really solidified that for you and kind of gave you a sense of more security in what you were doing, showing that you were up for it and were able to prove your own and hold your own.
It was just, you were, like, I think almost for any good new lawyer is when you're thrown into things, you prepare, you work hard. It happened so quickly, I couldn't be nervous. You just had to go in and figure this out and defend your expert depositions and make sure they went as well as they could go as well. And I learned how to fly a helicopter during that week.
Oh, cool.
Because the test pilot, one of the theories was pilot error. And I'd never flown a helicopter, and most of the people in that business were ex-military who had flown different things. So I was one of the lawyers in the room that had flown anything. So we went over the Arizona desert, and he was showing me how to land a helicopter without power, through power rotations. So we spent about 3 or 4 hours with dual controls on a helicopter so that I could finally understand what he was saying in terms of pilot error.
I feel trial attorneys in particular, sometimes it takes a particular person. So many people go into law school wanting to become an attorney, but not everyone's made out for being in the courtroom. So did that kind of scratch an itch and kind of solidify that you wanted to continue to litigate, because you continue to litigate for the rest of your career, before going onto the bench, correct?
Yeah, one of the things I think for people to be successful, and when I do talk to former law clerks or student groups, you have to like, or at least, it's better if you love what you do, but you got to at least like it. And so I knew right away that I loved it. It was just a passion for me. And if you like or love something, you're usually pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. So if you have that kind of passion for what you do, like you said about reading books, it's not work anymore. It was hard work, long hours, preparation. But, I was loving it.
So what did you continue, obviously following this trial? From what I understand, you moved on to a bigger firm. What type of cases did you continue to litigate?
That ended up being, the firm did, one of the reasons that they were attracted by me, I had just done this trial. And so I had a headhunter, and she's, have you heard of this firm? I said, yeah, sure. And so she puts me in contact, and I was tired of driving a long distance in Los Angeles, but I still wanted to work in downtown LA. I was working at the time in Westwood, long drive. So I'm talking to the partner, and we're hitting it off, this telephone interview, and she tells me, but you understand this is for the Orange County office. And so I didn't understand that. I didn't want to sound desperate. So I said, oh yeah, sure. And so I interviewed in Orange County and went to the Orange County, which was a smaller branch. And I think that was also helpful. So I walk in the first day, and on my desk are 5-10 files. They were legal malpractice cases. Mm-hmm. And none of the other young lawyers or new lawyers wanted to handle the legal malpractice cases because they said that the lawyers' clients were difficult. Yeah. I loved it because I was able to try cases, criminal law, property, divorce, bankruptcy, all kinds of different expertise. And I would just have to learn or hire the expert to teach me, what should have happened in this bankruptcy? What should have happened in this dissolution? Why was this will and trust prepared properly or not properly? All these different, a criminal case, a malpractice out of a criminal case. And so I just, again, loved it because I was learning something different every file. And also usually became friends with the opposing side. And usually became friends with my client. Mm-hmm. And that led to being on the bench in the sense because many of my former clients became judges. And they didn't do anything wrong in their cases. But they started encouraging me to apply. And then the partner that talked to me on the phone who hired me was the managing partner. And then she encouraged me when I was 35 to apply to the bench.
I mean, it definitely gave you a foundation in so many different areas of the law, which, obviously so many people that do eventually become judges don't have the opportunity. You got to kind of dip your toes in a variety of different areas of law, which really sets the foundation for you becoming a judge. It
did. It was a great training ground. When I first took the bench, I had handled one criminal case, and it was the legal malpractice case, but I never practiced in criminal law. So of course my first assignment on the bench was criminal law, doing misdemeanors and then doing felony trials. So it gave me that confidence that I could learn this and handle it.
Was that, and then I'll hand it off to John to ask you questions about, your experience on the bench, but I guess given the experience that you had with a variety of different areas of law and then kind of that being a driving force and kind of feeling that confidence, was there anything else in addition that really drove you to, becoming a judge and going onto the bench and really making a meaningful impact?
I think it was a public service. I think, because even though I was 37 when I became a judge, I had the sense that I really hadn't done much to give back to the community. And so part of it was that it was time, I made a decent living, and it was time to do something to give back to the community. So that's when I made it a point to become more of a mentor. I would speak to whoever wanted and invited me, whether it be a grammar school, reading at a grammar, reading to first graders, second graders, whatever it was, especially at the municipal court. You're so close to the people around you that there was a lot of opportunity to do that. And I thought also too, I thought it was important. We started off the podcast by talking about my father, and I thought it was important. So when I went to high schools or even grammar schools to talk about my father, and sort of to present the picture to the kids or the high school student that just despite the fact that you had a dad with and divorced parents, and that you walk into a classroom, probably 50% of the kids come from broken homes. Mm-hmm. And so it was the idea to me to speak to as many people as possible to make them understand or believe and to see me that I didn't have to be the victim of those kinds of circumstances, and the story could end well for the kids that I was talking to. So that's why I made it a point to always, when I spoke at high schools, grammar schools, to talk about my family so that they could see that what was going on behind closed doors could be overcome.
It's great because I feel like, there's this preconceived notion where, if you want to become a successful attorney, so many people think, okay, you have to come from a certain particular, family or background, et cetera. So I think that that's great that you went and spoke to so many different people to show you don't have to be raised a particular way. Every attorney that's successful, whatnot, comes from a different story. So I think that's really empowering and great that you did that.
We had a great story. We had a Judge Wright started the STAR program in the Central District of California, and that's a post-conviction rehabilitation. And it really is difficult for the participants. It's about people that would have strong drug addictions. So every once in a while, I would help him out and substitute in when he couldn't make it. And so there's usually about 10 participants, and there's a lot of preparation. So this individual stories, but it just so happened this one particular time, one of the participants, their son was there, and he was about 12 years old, and I started to talk to the son about my dad, which was his dad, who was right there. And the participant was so excited about it. He was looking at his son, you could become a judge. Look at him. Despite me, you can become a judge. And it was just that whole dynamic of, just by telling your story, the positive hope that you could give somebody. And here was Dad, who was post-conviction, felony conviction, federal court, now in the STAR program, and his son visiting and watching, and able to make that connection that son of the convicted felon, drug addicted person, that son could succeed.
That's great.
Super cool. I do want to explain, I was on my phone while you guys were talking, And the reason I was is when you said you did a legal malpractice defense, right upstairs we have a firm with a woman by the name of Heather Rosing, and that's what they do. And so I texted her and I said, hey, you know, we have a judge down here, and I just learned he did legal malpractice. So I invite him to come down, like if they're around at 2:15. But the first question I got, like, once you turn out to be a judge, does your mom want to be your clerk?
Oh my gosh. She wants to be my, well, unfortunately, she saw me become a state court judge. She didn't see me become a federal judge. But I remember when I got the call from the governor's office that I was going to become a judge. I'm kind of, I've mellowed out in age, but I was kind of an intense person at times. And so I get the call from the governor's office, and I call my mother, and we're both, I'm crying, she's not crying. And talking about my grandfather and how proud he would be. And my mother switches right into advice mode. She says, you better be nice, because if you're not, no one's going to like you. Oh, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
That's good to know.
But it was the courtroom clerk, you know, keeping the judge in line. So that was the first advice she gave me. And unfortunately, she wasn't around when I was sworn in as a federal judge.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But the person that swore me in was the first judge she worked for was Judge Takasugi.
Oh,
Wow.
cool.
And so it seems like when you go through the formal ceremony, various people talk about you. And inevitably, I just thought it was a design plan to make me sob on the bench, because Judge Takasugi starts talking about my mom. My high school teacher starts talking about my mom, and I'm just like about ready to lose it the entire time. But it was, again, full circle.
You know, Judge, you're talking, your mom gave you the advice, like, be a nice judge. And, you know, we try cases in front of different courts in different places. And, you know, I can always see a difference when the jury in particular really likes the judge. They really like the experience. Talk to us about, you know, and I feel like it's always a better place to try a case where the judge has created that atmosphere, you know. Talk to us about that, if you would.
It starts as soon as the jurors walk into the courtroom. It starts that whole process, and they see your demeanor, you know, whether you're happy to be there or not happy to be there. Usually I'm trying to make it a welcoming place for jurors. Many times it's the first time they've been in a courtroom. And then during the jury selection process, federal court, unlike state court, the lawyers don't necessarily have the right to ask questions in federal court. Some judges do. So basically the first contact they have is with the federal judge. And to me, the only way that process is going to be helpful to the lawyers is to enter into a discussion with the jurors about the various aspects of their lives that would make them fair and unbiased, or honestly partial in the particular case. And it's very simple. It's just a matter of being able to just have a conversation, talk to the jurors, and to, you know, be legitimately interested. So sometimes, you know, people will say, you know, I do X. I have no idea what X is. So it's just a matter of, can you tell me about your day? What does your day look like? And I think that legitimate interest in their lives, all of a sudden you're forming a bond with the individual juror, and making it a hospitable place, and they begin to trust you in how you're conducting the trial, that you're being fair and you're giving everybody their due.
I always wonder this, like, so once you're a judge for however many years, say toward the end, and you got a trial, you know, it could be a civil case or criminal case, say it's a civil case, with what degree of accuracy, because you've seen this for so long, are you able to predict the outcome?
More times than not. Then sometimes it's
just a curveball.
It's just a curveball. And it starts the process because many times, you know, when you have a pretrial conference with a lawyer, and you're still trying to get them to try to resolve the case among themselves. So sometimes that conversation could be, what do you think the value of the case is? What are you going to ask the jurors for? Well, you think, X million dollars. And I remember this, we were talking about this the other day, and I told this lawyer, you're out of your, not in a more polite way, you're out of your mind, basically. You're not going to get that from the jury. Well, that's he did that better.
Oh yeah,
in front of the jury. And again, we were, he just told a very compelling story that I didn't quite see when we were just talking about the case. I hadn't met his client yet. I hadn't seen her testify yet. And once the story unfolded, I was dead wrong.
And so, advice to trial lawyers, what has been, one or two of the most important things that you've seen in trial lawyers that have affected outcomes in a good way?
Well, one, be yourself. Don't be anybody else. Be nice. Tell a story. And I think especially today with all the way from video games to everything else, and people's attention spans are short. So the story has to be told in a compelling and concise and moving way. And I think those are the three things that I think does make a successful trial lawyer. And there are some that are very good at it. We were talking earlier about one of my classmates, and I'll give him a plug, Dale Gallipo. Mm-hmm. He's trying his 1983 cases. And two quick stories about Gallipo is we had jury selection, and one of the jurors said something really strange. He said, I have trouble hearing people with accents. What does that mean? What does that mean? I'm expecting the lawyers to ask them to be excused. They don't. Gallipo gets up in his opening statement. He says, I will try not to speak with an accent. All the jurors started laughing. Case was over.
Yeah. They thought this one of us, normal guy.
Yeah. And during that same trial, he is so cool. I found this out afterwards. Word was spreading that because he's got such a great reputation, all the externs in the building were basically going to watch his closing argument. And as I hear the story be told, I was in chambers. Instead of being worried about his opening statement, he turns around to the audience and starts asking questions of where did he go to law school, and he starts telling them what he's going to do in closing the argument and how he's going to do it. And then before the judge is ready to take the bench, he just sits down, and I come on, and he does it.
Wow!
So it's just he's himself. Yeah.
I love it. So, Judge, there's an elephant in the room that we have to kind of draw a little, fence around for today. And that is we are recording, within a week of these very large public protests in Los Angeles around immigration enforcement actions and some community members' response to that. And so, normally I would ask you about some of that stuff, but you as a retired federal judge are subject to perhaps being asked to be a special master. I know sometimes I've seen programs where the courts will ask retired judges to come back and preside over certain matters. And so you got to steer clear of that stuff.
Yeah, I'll still give some perspective. I mean, it's First Amendment's so important, and it's important that people voice their dissent with the government, that they protest, that they, speak their mind about what they think is wrong or what they think is right. And so, but the problem being, unfortunately, some people really, I think, care about what's being said, and end up, through vandalism or through other things, I think, delete the message. So it was hard this week to watch or to see is because I worked as a federal judge. I was chief judge in 2020, the last time there was civil unrest. And courthouses are special places, and federal courthouses are super special places. Anybody who's practiced how special it is when you walk into a federal courthouse, it's solemn. And to see, graffiti there's two courthouses in Los Angeles. One is at Roybal, which is right next door to the detention center. And to see the damage done to the courthouse is difficult. Same thing, I haven't seen it yet, but there was also damage done to the old courthouse, which is now leased by the LA Superior Court, but it's still a federal building. And then there was damage done to the First Street Courthouse, which is the brand new courthouse. And so it's just difficult, and it when I was chief, one of the things you have to decide is how to protect the building, how to protect your employees, how to protect the people that are coming to court. So just things like that were distasteful to me was like building a fence around the courthouse. The courthouse is supposed to be a safe place. It's supposed to be accessible to everybody. Everybody should be able to walk in and feel no harm is going to come to them, and they get to voice their grievances, either a grievance against the government, whether it be a civil rights case, 1983 case, whether it be a criminal defendant fighting for his liberty. And again, it's got to be a welcoming place for the defendant. It's got to be a welcoming place for the prosecutor. It's got to be a good place for the family members who are coming to watch the trial. It's got to be a friendly place for the victims, safe place. So that's that's from my perspective. It's a different perspective when you're watching civil unrest when it gets out of hand, and you see special places being vandalized. So that's from my perspective. That's the hardest thing to watch. And but there was some relief in not being chief this weekend. So I was just watch and didn't have to worry about. I mean, I'm sure what was going on Monday was how do you keep the building open, because people have business, people have cases, they have things that are very important to them to be heard. So
I mean, those courts, Judge, are ultimately where anybody with those types of grievances, if they're real grievances, are going to be able to get justice. And it's sad that probably through just kind of indiscriminate, targeting against the government or just institutions or buildings or property, that people would feel compelled to demark or vandalize, those places.
They're important places where important things are going to decide, agree or disagree. The Attorney General from California is talking about bringing a lawsuit, bringing a grievance against the administration that the call of the National Guard was improper. Well, where is that grievance going to get heard?
Yeah.
One of the labor leaders, Huerta, was arrested. Well, he needs an arraignment. He needs to figure out whether he's going to get bail or not. Well, Roybal has to be open for him to get his hearing to receive bail. So as the turmoil goes around you, things have to still happen.
Yeah, we do civil rights cases here, Judge, and the advice or counsel that we would give is obey the law, act peacefully, exercise your constitutional rights, but within all that, it's not going to help your cause any, or whatever you're fighting for, to just be an irresponsible, reckless, indiscriminate person and not follow the law.
Right.
And so not only for whatever cause is something they're fighting for, but also ultimately you come to us, and you have some hassle with the police, but just prior to that, you're busting a cop's window. That's probably not going to be a very good case for us. Just so you know, if you are marching peacefully with a Mexican flag and you get taken out, then obviously that's a whole different.
That's a different story, and that case is going to be filed in the courthouse that was just vandalized.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to. Yes. Well, so turning, the page. So what are you doing today, Judge? What's keeping you busy?
I'm doing private mediation as neutral work. So trying to resolve disputes outside of the court system. The cases either have been filed or will be filed or have been filed. I've been hired in several arbitrations, probably about 50 arbitrations that will be heard next year.
Wow. 50? 50?
Well, we'll see how many go, right?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And then I've done some special master work for the Northern District of California, and I've been busy, a little bit more busy than I wanted to be. It's retirement, but it's a good thing.
Are you still reading?
I do. I just finished not a serious book. Well, it's a serious topic in some points, but one of my favorite people when I was growing up was Johnny Carson. So I just read an autobiography about Johnny Carson. So I'm kind of picking my next. There's a whole stack of books in my office that every time we go to the bookstore, we'll buy something, and then it gets on the pile, and then you figure out which one to pull out.
Now, Blanca, would you say that he is working more or less than you anticipated after he stepped off the bench?
More.
Definitely more, right?
Definitely more.
And is that okay with you, or were you ready just for full-time husband?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you're good?
I'm okay with it, yes. He still makes time for us, and so I'm okay with it.
Blanca likes to travel.
Oh.
So as long as there's something
for
to
that.
look forward to in terms of travel, everything.
What's the favorite place you ever went? Blanca.
Me? That I went to? Probably.
No, you have to have gone with him.
Oh, Paris.
Paris.
Yeah.
Oh.
Love
Yeah.
Paris, yes. We both love Paris.
They just got a big win, PSG.
Well,
His initials.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh.
so what happened? That's funny you mentioned that because I just got a PSG jersey because every time.
Cool.
Because my initial when in federal court there's a case number, but then there's the judge's initials. So my initials were PSG, and so anytime I would tell somebody PSG, they would say, "Well, Paris Saint-Germain." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So anyway, when I was flipping channels, I noticed that I was watching the French Open from Paris, Roland Garros, and when Djokovic from Serbia was playing Sinner from Italy, Djokovic got very upset because the French crowd on their phones were watching the soccer match.
Oh.
So they were going crazy during the tennis match. And
Like if they'd score a goal.
So the camera had all these people watching PSG win the championship. So what I decided to do, I thought it'd be pretty funny. I just got it in the mail yesterday. I got my PSG.
Love it.
My PSG jersey.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, I watched. It's funny you said Mexico City. I watched that match in Mexico City with my son, who's he's a big PSG fan, and they just crushed them.
It was it was a crushing blow.
5-0.
Yeah,
crazy. So last question, and then I'll close out.
Okay. Mine's pretty easy.
Okay.
What advice would you give to law students that are looking down the road and maybe in pursuit of being on the bench?
Pursuit on the bench is a little different, but I'm going to repeat myself. The law can be a very hard profession, and because it's hard, you can't let it beat you. You have to find, and if you don't necessarily find it right off the bat, you have to find something you enjoy doing, something you believe in, whether it's civil rights cases, whatever it is, defending big corporate, being a U.S. attorney, becoming a public defender, whatever your passion is. Again, because that's what's gonna. It's, as I said, it's difficult, it's time consuming, but again, if you love it, if you believe in the work that you're doing, it's easier. Becoming a judge, I think, one, be competent in what you do, but I think second, people want to know that when they appoint a judge, that they call it robitis. The robe won't get to your personality, to your head. So what's the track record for you not having robitis, letting the title get to your head? How have you treated people in your profession, as you were practicing law, how did you treat your opposition? How did you treat the opposition, the client? How did you treat, the governor's office or the president's office, the White House counsel's office are going to ask everybody who's ever had contact with you, what was your demeanor? Will you have a good demeanor for the bench? I think they care about more than that about incompetence. But so the bottom line, I think, is your reputation starts in law school, if not before that, especially with social media. We didn't have that, so what you put on your social media will follow you the rest of your life. And so it's a matter of treating other people with the dignity and respect, treating all people the same equally.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
So you've clearly had an impactful career on the bench and then also as a litigator. What are you most proud of and what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
I think that both sides feel they got a fair shake. That I wasn't pro-prosecution or I wasn't pro-defense, that I treated, at both sides fairly, that you walked in the courtroom, that I was prepared, listened, and both sides felt they had a chance.
So, Judge, last question, and I steal this from Osotava and his podcast, Cracks. Highly recommend it. If you could write a message in the sky for all the world to see forever, what would you tell them?
It's become more common now, but I would be dream big, because what I talked about at the beginning, when I was 12 years old, if you told me I was going to become a pretty decent tennis player, I couldn't have even dreamt it. When I was 13 years old, if you told me 4 years later I was going to be in Ireland, I never could have dreamt it. If you would have told me, I was going to be a judge when I was 37, I couldn't have dreamt it. So it's important to dream big, because your dreams that will happen will be bigger than anything that you can imagine. So I think the parameter has to be that you have to set your sights, the clouds to the stars.
I like it. Beautifully said. And so thank you again, Judge, for joining us. Thank you, Blanca, for being part of this. Thank you to my co-host. This episode, as always, is brought to you by our sponsor, Gomez Trial Attorneys, a national trial law firm based in California that provides personal injury, employment rights, civil rights, mass torts, and class action representation. If you like this, share it. I'm hopeful that Mr. McGuire and Mr. Moran will tune in and check this out. I'm hopeful that some of the judges' colleagues, perhaps, or people that have appeared in front of him, maybe even Dale will listen and hear about what a great trial lawyer he is. Classmate of Judge Dolly G. and Dale Gallipo, pretty cool class that you were part of. And so thank you again, Judge. This wraps things up. We're going to take the judge out. I think some of our firm members are here to hear from you. If the message got upstairs on time, they'll be out there too. So thank you again.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for listening to the Latino Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.